All right, let's cut that out. Let's get into the show. Salutations, everyone. Welcome in.
Welcome.
Salutations, everyone. Welcome to Logic and Reason, where we discuss people's logic and their reason. I'm your host. I guess I'm changing my name now to Reason. I am joined by
Logic.
I wonder if you should say it first, and then I probably.
Yeah, probably so.
All right, we'll fix that.
I'm
next
Logic.
time.
He's Reason.
You've had a tremendous week last week, hopping into other shows, live streams, and getting shout outs. I remember I was working on the show or doing something. I was doing something, and I see her, and she's constantly getting shouted out by that guy that you were. It was some show that you were on, and you just could everything that you were saying in the comment section was getting shouted out.
They're like, what's up, Logic?
Yeah. So I was like, all right, I guess that's your new name now, Logic.
Yeah, I think I'll go by it.
Not bad.
Thank you.
Like and subscribe, everybody. We have to make sure that we pay our respects to the YouTube algorithm and ask for those delicious, unfiltered comment section comments and likes and subscribes. We are now on cam. For all those people who are asking us if we're going to be on camera, we're finally here.
Here we are.
It took us a minute. Here you go. So now we can actually talk, and I mean, I don't know.
That's it.
Yeah, there's a little. I don't know. There's not really much else to say on that. I don't know if maybe this is actually going to decrease our viewership now because our faces are on cam, or at least my face. Your face is probably fine. Mine, I don't know.
No. Although I do remember the one from before with the lunch live.
Yes, the lunch live. Oh, let us know in the comment section if you guys liked the lunch live episode that we did. It was just one of the spur of the moment type things. But we did happen to get some decent. I think we had a couple of people on that live. And apparently you guys really enjoyed the Clarence Thomas episode or series. We had a little 2-episode series on that. And so, if you want us to do more political stuff or just maybe elected officials, let us know in the comment section. We do read our comments. And we, if you guys were paying attention to those last episodes, we read them live as well.
Yeah. And reply. Yeah.
All right. So today's episode is about AI and all the advancements that we're seeing with AI. And so my first introduction with AI, and maybe this was, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but like the very first introduction to AI I've experienced was when you want to talk to customer service, right? And they, in a robotic voice, ask you a series of questions. And then unfortunately you get to a situation where you have a very specific question and the AI is like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're constantly dealing with that, and so you usually have to say the magic phrase, "Speak to a representative," because get this robot out of my face.
My favorite, press 0 so many times and dial the little hashtag, and it's like, I don't understand. Please press one of the options before it. I'm like,
what was that? Right? Yeah, it can't.
Yeah.
But that was actually a form of AI. A computer generated whatever is talking to you and. Not very well, but it's doing that. So we've come a long way from that. Chat GPT is, I guess, the latest craze now. I forgot, like almost a billion or a million users at this point. Mm-hmm. And it is opening up a lot of questions and discussions, and hopefully we can kind of touch into some of those today. So what can this thing do? It can do a lot of things. I've actually dabbled with it just to test it out and obviously to talk about it with the show. And it's really interesting, the speed that it can generate a lot of these things. Like I was like, hey, write a 3-paragraph summary of a short story about tacos. And then it would like spit out immediately like this whole story. And it was like, wow, this is actually pretty well written. And then he's like, you know what, change the first paragraph and have it be in the voice of Kermit the Frog. And then it would, you know, use that or maybe change it to Yoda, right? And then it'll start rewording it to have it to where Yoda is speaking. So it can do a lot of interesting things with language. And so for this show, I just like, you know what? Let me ask Chat GPT, what can you do? So I said, you know,
show me what you got.
Right. So I put in a little prompt. I said, hey, in 10 bullet points, tell me what you can do. Figured that'd be appropriate for the show, right?
Yeah.
So this thing's like, sure, right? So it says that the first thing it do is answer questions, right? It says, I can provide information on a variety of topics and help answer question inquiries. Immediately, I'm thinking, are these answers accurate, right? Like, how do you fact check this thing? Where is it pulling its information from? And so that's where it's like, I don't know about the credibility of the chat. It's just pulling stuff out of its butt. I don't know, right? I know
pulling
it's
from too many different places.
Yeah, and the context is out.
Are you sure it's not plagiarizing?
Right. Language translation, so it can translate.
Excuse me.
It can translate in different languages. Content generation, so if you wanted to write an essay for you or an article or scripts, which is, you know, a really touchy area because we don't really want that. I mean, for scripts, I think if you're just trying to get a base level down so that you can speed up your process on how fast you can write a script. But I wouldn't want AI to just write scripts and just completely get rid of writers.
Absolutely not. As a writer, I oppose that strongly.
Yes, actually, that's a great question. So would you be comfortable if a author wrote an entire book using Chat GPT?
Would they be able to consider themselves an author at that point for that particular book or output they had?
Well, they wrote the prompt.
They wrote the prompt? Is that
I typed in 2 sentences.
Sorry. They would be considered an author for their other works. I think that they'd be a great prompt introducer to. Is it Chat GPT they're using for this hypothetical?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, but it's still the robot or whatever AI that made it. You can't take credit for that.
I imagine some people are. I was speaking to...
Not as your own original work completely.
Hey, I was speaking to one of my cousins, and he was saying that they're trying to figure out a way to cut it down in school because people are using it to write their essays for them. Instead of doing it the traditional route of paying cash to the nerd in your classroom.
Oh my goodness.
To write it for you.
He did not just say that.
Instead, now I'm just sitting back on my computer and asking the computer to do it. Write my essay for me. Thank you. In my voice. I'm sarcastic. And then boom. Article's written. That's where we're at right now. Yeah. And then we're done. And then I go play video games for the next 3 hours.
And then you learn nothing.
Absolutely. It's 100% facts.
Yeah. I don't know how a student or an author is having any growth and progression by utilizing the tools in that way.
Yeah. I think that's where, that's kind of where we need to put, I don't know if the government needs to do this. I'd rather it not be the government. I'd rather it be self-discipline. But, you know, we need to have limitations to this power. Because that is one of the bigger questions I have that I was going to actually ask you later on in the episode, but I guess this is a good time to introduce it. Does this essentially dummy down our population? Because then what is the need for me to know how to write? Go through the practice of creative writing and developing my skill as a writer when all I really need to know is basic level English to type in a prompt. And the computer can do it for me.
Short answer, yes. Long answer, not long answer, but short answer, yes. It does dumb people down But I think we've already been on a slow decline of dumbing people down in a variety of like industries and with different things, with people becoming, I don't want to call it lazy. I was gonna say lazier, but finding innovative ways and creative ways to accomplish tasks. Um, it's not beneficial because what would you do without in a situation where it was removed? You know, so it's different when you know how to do something and you're just utilizing tools to make it go faster. Still have the same stance on making a creative work. You can't say it's you when it wasn't you who thought of the whole paper or paragraph or whatever you're using it for. But otherwise, you know, not using it as not initially. It's kind of like before when with the calculators, when they introduced students to the calculator. Before that, you have to learn arithmetic with pencil and paper.
That's actually a very good analogy and point.
Oh, thank you.
It really is, because it's like this kind of goes into just a bigger conversation just about technology in general, right? Like it's a situation where as technology advances, we don't have to do as much.
Yeah.
Right, because I remember for sure, like this had to be middle school for me, where teachers are like, no calculators, no calculators, no calculators, because they wanted you to be able to do the calculations in your head. Right, don't rely on this device.
Yeah, either in your head or whenever it starts becoming complicated, show your work on the
paper.
Do
it on paper, right? Yeah, it's like, all right, can you go through the process of it on paper?
Yeah.
Right, so it causes you to, I imagine, I don't know, that's necessarily imagine, but you have this mental benefit because what you've learned here, you can apply into other aspects of life.
Yeah.
In the processes that you're using. Just knowledge in general is beneficial.
Yeah. But as you mentioned earlier, are people going to have the self-discipline to try and learn things on their own, to push the limits on their own before using this technology, or they're going to use it as a crutch? And then the crutch eventually becomes your whole existence. It's like, well, I can't do it without this.
I would be very curious. I'd be very curious to know if there are people walking around, adult people, who don't know how to do simple addition and subtraction because their phone does it for them.
Yeah.
I would be very interested to know that. I mean, I haven't paid attention to people enough to like start, hey, before you do your tip, do you know what this plus this means is, and can you do that in your head? So I think we're already kind of there, and it's dumbing us down simply because we just don't need to, right? We have a phone that has all the information in the world, so there's no need for us to memorize different facts because I can just pull up that fact on the phone. The phone is essentially an extension of my brain, and I just tap into it whenever I need to. Which then becomes an issue of, if the phone dies, then does my brain die? Because now I know nothing. I haven't retained anything in my mental storage. And so, yeah, that's a huge concern for just knowledge in general. It is nice to know how to move about the process of something, and then you can use technology to speed yourself up, but you know how to do it in case the technology dies.
Yeah.
Which that happens, right? Technology gets finicky sometimes, and then all of a sudden, when it doesn't work, your whole world is falling apart. I think we mentioned, in just like in a private conversation, that if you take away people's phones, they wouldn't know how to operate.
Oh yeah, absolutely, in so many facets. I think you mentioned the GPS and driving around.
GPS is a great example of that, right? And that's something I've been aware of personally. It's trying to make sure that I actually know how to drive places. Without having to use my phone to plug in the address.
You don't like Siri telling you every direction and which way to go?
I don't want to be in a situation where I don't have Siri and all of a sudden I can't get home. Like, it's just, I mean, it just sounds weird to me. Here's another one.
What?
How many of you guys out there know your cell phone number?
I hope they do.
I hope that's on the basic level. I hope that's the case. Now, how many of you know other people's numbers?
What about an emergency contact?
Just any number.
You got to know one.
Right.
By heart.
By heart, right? And so, but that becomes an issue because then it's like, all right, well, there's no need for me to memorize people's numbers because I have my phone and my phone has all the numbers. But then what happens when the phone is messing up and you need to call somebody and you don't know anybody's phone number because, you shoved all that information in your phone and never put it in your brain. So there's an issue there.
Yeah.
Just to close up Chat GPT, it can do mathematics, as it's simple mathematics, it says here. Provide definitions for words, spell check. It can do word games, and it can generate. We already saw the poems and things of that nature.
True. I didn't know it could do the definitions. Okay.
Yeah.
And spell check. Step aside Grammarly. I think it's Grammarly, right?
Grammarly is actually a form of AI.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, and so that actually brings up a good point. A lot of technology that I'm seeing now is incorporating AI inside their software. So, like, I remember Hootsuite was a great example, right? I would use Hootsuite to schedule some posts for work. And I notice now that there's AI involved, so where it can restructure your sentences and say, oh, this could, this could make it more concise, or you can ask it to actually write a full post for you in the type of mood that you're looking for. So he's like, hey, I want it to be in a confident tone, or I want it to be in a professional tone or a humorous tone, and it can actually write it, to the best of its ability in that type of tone. It's kind of weird. We're also at the point now where AI can write code. So if you're building a website and you're not really code savvy, you can ask the AI to, hey, I want my landing page to look like this, and then it can write the code for you. And you can shove it in there. So, all those people who are on Fiverr who get paid $150, $100 an hour to do, simple but complicated than the average Joe's knowledge tasks on somebody's website.
Yeah.
Move over because AI is here.
Oh, gosh. I'm sure there's some kind of mistakes that it still makes.
Yeah, I imagine
there's got to be, I almost said human error. That's funny. There got to be robot error, AI error.
Yeah. So now that was chat. So now we go into imagery, and probably a lot of you guys have seen this on Facebook, where you have somebody uploads their face, and then they'll ask the software to do these elaborate illustrations of like, oh, I'm an astronaut, or me as a Earth goddess. There's a lot of those for some weird reason.
I'll keep my comments to myself on that.
That's funny. I have seen some very good ones with I can hear you. I've seen some really good ones where somebody made like African outfits, like a series of African outfits, all AI generated, or like a bunch of like people from 1920s in like different backgrounds. I've seen that generated as well. So
African outfits?
Yeah, like they'll make these generated people with different outfits.
Oh, okay.
So DALL happens to be one of the most popular software for this one. It's made by the same company that created Chat GPT, and I think it stands for Salvador Dali and the animated character Wally. So together, DALL-E.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not just, I was thinking, it reminds me of Wall-E. Mm-hmm. But it actually was purposely made that way.
Yes. So you can basically, very similar to Chat GPT, you can basically write a prompt on what you want, and the AI will generate an image instead of some text. So I took a stab at this, and I don't think the results were that great. So I asked it to create a child sitting on an apple with clouds around it, and in outer space with Mars in the background. So it got the Mars part. I think that's got that right. It had the clouds kind of like that. There is no apple, and the kid's face looks kind of weird. Oh, I did say that it was on his computer. Same prompt, just different variation. Again, the faces look a little messed up, but this one, I think at least the background looks kind of cool. You got that one right.
Background cool face creepy to me at least,
Yes.
or at least aged for
I don't know what like
a
the
small
reference photos are
child.
for some of these, but they look hella weird.
Where did you pull this from?
Hey, I don't know. That's very strange. So that was the concept from that one. I guess that's kind of weird. Maybe I needed more information in my prompt.
You like weird.
I like weird.
Yeah. Maybe that's what Wally was thinking. He likes weird. I'm going to add weird. I don't know. It can't think. Not yet, at least. So, I don't know. Maybe if you added, you said more information or different information?
Either one.
Okay.
The results were not very good. So that's you guys be the judge of that. I mean, I wouldn't say I wouldn't put that on a wall somewhere. But I've seen some people have some really good results. Another one, we can't forget about the evil empire that is Google. Google, I guess I can't call them the evil empire, but the empire, Google. So Google's like, hey, don't forget about me out here. I'm out here in the game. So they released Bard, which is their kind of AI assistant software. And so with Bard, it's a little different. So Bard can do similar things like Chat GPT, although it can't do the creative writing to the level, I would say. But what it can do is it has access to the internet. So you can ask it to look up something, and then you can ask it to organize that information. So one of the demonstrations I saw from one of the keynote speeches of Google is that some kid was looking for some colleges to go to. So he said, "Hey, I'm interested in video games, right? What careers can I do with that?" And so Bard gave it, "Hey, you can do this, 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 and this," right? And then the next prompt the person asked is like, "Okay, well, what majors would help to get get that type of career, right?" And then it's like, "Well, these are the majors that you can." That you could, go in for.
Oh, how helpful.
And then it said, okay, well, what colleges have that program? And then it said, here's, some colleges that have the programs to that, for that animation, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And then the guy said, okay, put that in a spreadsheet. And then Bard put it in a spreadsheet. And then the person said, all right, add a column on whether it's a public or private school. And then they would add the column. And they would put the answers of like, oh, this one was public, this was private, such and such. And the person said, okay, cool. Export that to my Google Sheets or export that in Google Sheets. And then it was able to export. Now you have this whole table, which would have, without Bard, would have taken you several hours to comb through all the different school websites. So you figure out if they have the program that you want and all this different stuff. And you basically created this spreadsheet in a matter of minutes.
Yeah.
So, in that example, I could see a lot of utility for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your take on that? Like,
that's tremendous, right?
I approve.
That is a fantastic assistant, right?
Absolutely.
To be able to do things that would have, spent hours working on, to get that knocked out in a matter of minutes. I mean, for those procrastinators out there who wait until the last minute to do their projects, I mean, this is a godsend.
Yes.
So, tremendous, right? And for those who are overstretched at work because, your job doesn't want to hire another person, whether it be through budgetary reasons or just because they just don't want to, this allows you to get more done with fewer people. But then that immediately goes into a problem area, which is because we can get more done with fewer people, does that mean less jobs?
In that example, I guess for admin or data entry. In the beginning of the example where you mentioned the student, I would say the utility is wonderful because I don't see what else he's learning by pulling all this information and spending all the extra time to make the spreadsheet. He's still going to have the spreadsheet. The utility of the spreadsheet has nothing to do with what he's learning along the way. He wants to find the information.
That is true.
And so for me, I'd be like, that's a mindless task or a unnecessary, unnecessary hoops to go through if you have a tool that can help you do it quicker. For the work wise, that does bring, not to be repetitive, what you said, it does bring an issue if it was someone's job to gather all that data. But you could still have someone there to look over it, to make sure it's accurate. Because who's to say that, to fact check? Yes. Fact check, cross-reference, make sure everything's in the correct places, nothing misspelled. I mean, even using like in text when it has the autocorrect, a lot of times different names or things are changed. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's not what I wanted at all. I didn't even ask you to do anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I guess it's going to cause us. I see a divide that could potentially happen, right? I see a divide where it would cause us to either level up and have to like gain more intellectual skills to be able to manage AI.
Yeah.
Or for those who don't have that ability, they just become unemployed. Right, so there'll just be this divide going on where like the middle ground of somebody who had average level cognitive ability, but not enough to be a manager or not enough to be a strategian, I guess would be a better way of saying that. Mm-hmm. They get out of a job. But those of you who can do, now you have a team of robots, right? So instead of having, which I don't know if I like a team of robots. I mean, on the surface, a team of robots will do exactly what you ask it to do. You can ask the AI for ideas, and the AI can generate ideas for you. But it's not the same as a group creative process where like you have another human being that you're bouncing ideas off of. And sometimes the far-fetched idea turns into a brilliant idea. And I think you lose that type of magic when you are just dealing with a robot. So I don't know. I think there's room for it, but I would hate to see this be an excuse for businesses to just be like, all right, we're going to hire 2 people, and those 2 people are in charge of using chat and Bard to do all these different tasks.
Oh gosh. Right,
and then you just basically manage software.
And then are they the only 2 people who go to lunch? Or are they taking some of this robots with them? Like, no more, lunch creativity, lunch complaints or banter.
There's no
time. What's the water cooler talk?
There's no water cooler talk because the robots, unless you want to chat with the Chat GPT, which you could.
I guess
you could chat with it.
That's crazy.
I remember I sent a message to it saying, "Hey, that was a really good poem you wrote," and it said, "Thank you. Let me know what other tasks you want me to do." And I'm like, that's a little weird. But yeah, you can chat with it. That does actually remind me of another point. You were watching a video of, it was like a technology advancement video thing, and it was talking about trying to put AI robots into senior centers. Yep. So that the seniors would have the AI to speak to. And one of the ladies said, in a really funny quote, she said that the seniors who had the AI to speak to were far happier than the seniors that didn't have anyone to speak to. And I was like, well, yes, anybody would be, happy to speak to anything than just sitting in a room by themselves. It's not the AI being great. That's the fact that
representative of AI's
success. I would want to see you compare the person talking to AI versus the person. I would like you to compare it to them talking to AI versus them talking to a real person.
You don't think the AI could compare? You have a good conversation. Be like, "What up, old man?"
The AI is not going to say that.
"Good morning, old lady. I saw you didn't take your meds. You want me to tell the nurse?" No.
Wait, would you? If you become 80,
I guess it'd have to be pre-programmed.
If you become 80 years old, do you want to spend all your time talking to a robot?
No, but I've definitely threatened my parents I'd get them one. They're not 80 yet, though. A soft threat, a push towards assistance in
That
case
is
I'm not able to always be accessible.
that is
If
actually
they needed something, I wouldn't
yes.
want them to just be alone or, both of them helpless or something. If they came to an age and strength levels down and they're trying to reach for the phone by themselves, you know, press a button or ask AI to do it.
Okay, so for that type of stuff, I'm 100% for.
Okay.
I think for people who are more needy than others,
Yeah.
who require somebody to be essentially a hand servant, then yes, I think the AI is a tremendous opportunity for you to exercise as many tasks as you want to send out to this thing, and it won't get tired. It won't need to eat or use
Bring
the
me
bathroom.
tea. Bring me coffee.
Bring me this. Bring me that.
Bring me lunch. Or
Write
open
my
the door for the lunch that's delivered. I don't
write
know.
my this. Write my that. Can you
because it
check
can
this?
write. Yes.
And it can spell check.
Edit my yes.
And it can grammar check. They can do all those things.
Yeah.
So all those tasks where it's like, stop bothering me with these mundane things. Send the robot to do it, and then boom.
Well, it's not a bother. It's more of, how many things can humans do versus robots in a certain time frame.
It is a bother if you have more pressing things to do.
Yeah.
It is a bother because it's distracting me from the more important thing I have to work on.
I guess so. Guess it depends who you're talking to.
So yes, I think Bard has some good utility here. I think having it connected to Google, obviously because it's a Google product, I imagine that's going to definitely improve Google search. I think Google search is going to get better and better. Apple has incorporated AI inside its Photos app, and so now when you are searching for different photos, you can now search through text and be like, a picture of my dog at the pool, and you'll be able to actually find that photo within the Photos app. So yeah, they've incorporated that. I think that was a rollout last year, and I was like,
"This Apple."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and that was when they started rolling out all those other different features. Like you can pull images out of photos, and you can pull
Oh yeah,
text.
that freaked me out.
That's all AI.
I pressed on it and I didn't mean to pull the person out of the picture, and it just started coming up in 3D. And I'm like, oh, not trying to do that.
Yeah, that's all AI on that one. So we're already living in an AI world.
Yeah. Apple's calling me unknown person. So if I click unknown person, then it picks up all my pictures.
Nice. And so
I'll tell it to me at some point.
Nice. Yeah, so we are. I can't help but continue thinking about iRobot.
Okay.
With all this stuff.
What about that?
Well, actually, there's several movies. iRobot, Terminator's another good one. But iRobot is I think a better example because that was a future where everyone had a robot assistant in their home, and the robots were doing all of the manual labor. They were giving you things and assisting with different stuff. And the main character, Will Smith, didn't trust the robot. Because, I don't know, at this point, I guess I'm not spoiling the movie because the movie's like 100 years old now.
If you consider it's a spoiler, okay, I'm going to be nice. Let me sit back.
But, okay, so, anyway, spoiler alert, whatever. It's an old movie, so if you haven't seen it by now, then it's whatever. But anyway, Will Smith does not trust the robot, or his name's not Will Smith, but the actor Will Smith, who's portraying the guy, he doesn't trust robots because he was in a car accident, and a robot deemed that Will was more probable to survive this crash than the little girl. And so he blamed this experience for the robot saving his life, because a human would have looked at the situation and would have tried to save the little girl, because you typically want to save children before adults. But the robot was looking at things through a practical end and is like, well, probability-wise, you have a better chance of survival than the girl does. And so he from that moment on, he built this mistrust for robots. Eventually, this massive software malfunction happens, and the main AI ends up controlling all the different robots and causing mischief and mayhem and destruction and killing people and, eventually kill all humans. And then there ends up being this whole war, and Will Smith has to go and start shooting up people, or not people, but shooting up robots, and it becomes this whole thing. It's like kind of like a I told you so type of situation. And kind of like with Terminator, right? You create this technology, and it's supposed to be there to benefit everyone, and then all of a sudden the robots change to kill all humans, and then you have this giant war. So you can even put Alien in there, right? This guy creates this robot who has the ability to have free will, David to think on his own. And then what ends up happening is David wants to create in his own way, and so he creates the alien thing that ends up killing all humans. So,
oh my goodness, such a good movie though.
It is a great series, but the
series of movies, yes.
The running theme in all of these different movies is eventually the creator gets killed by the created, and eventually the robots turn to kill all humans. I actually have to add another movie in there, and that's Matrix. You guys remember the whole twist with Matrix is it's a whole war between the machines and the humans, and they enslaved all these humans to be inside the Matrix in order to use them as batteries.
Yeah.
So yeah, kill all humans is eventually the end point on all of this stuff. So am I saying, based off of all these sci-fi films, that eventually AI is going to turn on us and follow the same lead as far as kill all humans? I don't know, right? These are
morbid.
These are movies at the end of the day, but I would say that there may be some truth in some of these stories.
Life has imitated art many times before.
Right? And the people who wrote these scripts were thinking about the logical end.
Shout out to logic.
And reason.
And reason. We didn't forget about you.
No, we didn't. The logical end of a lot of these concepts, right? So that's the interesting part. But here's a bigger question.
What's that?
Besides the kill all humans part.
Okay.
And us dumbing down and not having the ability to do basic things because we're so heavily dependent upon the AI and our phones and the robots of the future.
What are we going to do without the AI?
What happens when the power shuts off?
Dun, dun, dun. Oh, did you want me to answer that for real?
Sure.
Oh, no. I guess which thing happens first? Because some people live in smart homes.
Okay.
Smart apartment buildings. So people are
at this point, don't we all?
Okay.
Like everything that we own now is smart.
This is
The
true.
TV
But I mean, like
smart.
down to like the door you're getting locked out of your place.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That type of smart.
Shutting off. Yeah. Completely shutting off like I don't know. I guess that's extreme. What happens? I think people go nuts. Some people go nuts. Some people are out off the grid, so they're not really concerned about it at all, right? Like they're chilling. They may not even realize anything happened.
Yeah.
And then they become a good resource because people are like, how did you do this? How do you live off the land? But I think before people jump to trying to learn how to live, without devices, people are going to be like storming the streets, protesting, trying to find out what happened, where is the power, who's to blame.
So,
because why would this happen, right?
So how would the protesting kind of start? Because if I remember correctly, during 2020, the protesting was organized through social media. So if there's no power, there's no social media to communicate.
Uh-oh. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't know their neighbors. Because I'd
Absolutely
say you
not.
just walk outside and knock on the door. Hey, what happened? Something happened with your power? My power's off.
Yeah, we don't really talk to our neighbors like that.
That poses a little bit of problem.
So,
Slight problem.
So our community is all internet based and less physically based. Although we try to blend the two. We try to
Sometimes.
find people on the internet to meet in person.
Yeah.
Right? So that does happen.
So I guess people with standing dates, like, it doesn't have to be like a date, but like standing appointment meetings could go to the location where they usually meet except for that location probably wouldn't have power either. But they can meet outside if it was that time. But then they'd have to have a digital device that, I mean, not a digital device. They'd have to have an original clock, like, or watch. Like yours. Sorry, I was thinking of, I'm not going to throw her under the bus. Like someone who saw your watch and was like, ew, it's not a smartwatch.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, you do have a smartwatch, but you also have some very fine classics.
Yes, my analog automatic watch made a Gen Z person say ew. Mm-hmm. And so that was
what is that?
I was like, this is a watch, which is a device that tells the time.
Oh my goodness.
That has no power on it, and you have to crank it in order to wind the clock. This was like this whole learning experience, and I was like, this is weird. Like, we're not that far in age, but it seems like this is ancient technology for some of these young people.
Excuse me.
Complete ancient technology. Yeah, I think people lose their minds. The first group of people who would probably lose their minds first would most likely be the Instagram models and OnlyFans folks. I don't know what they do if the power goes out, because their whole life is social media.
Oh yeah, their means of income.
Like everything.
Well, everything. Their attention. Because I think they'd probably think of the attention before they thought of their accounts. So on that note, I'd say people would run to the bank.
It would run to the bank.
Because you just made me think of if you're talking about the OnlyFans models or whatever they're called, the people on Instagram as well, with those kind of accounts, they would initially be concerned about their attention, not receiving attention because the phone's shut off. They can't see all their likes. But also, if they get money or Cash App and everything during or whatever, however their money is dispersed, they would be like, where is my money? I need to see my money. But if you can't even log into your device, you can't. So then I was thinking of other people just in general. Like, I log into my apps all the time to see my money. But if everything turned off, I'd probably want to go to a physical ATM and be like, all right, let me press this button. Although that's also electronic. But I'd want to know that the money is there.
Yes, the ATM would be non-existent.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Long explanation, but that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I can see that'd be a massive problem. And so,
I don't know. Let us know if what you all think.
Yeah.
'Cause I feel like I gave like a lame answer. I don't know. What would happen if everything shut up? Was that the original question?
Well, just society-wise, like I think that it would be traumatic.
And for how long are you talking about? Are you saying in the
it doesn't even have to be that long
reaction?
it doesn't even have to be that long for it to have a chaotic effect. I just think that the people couldn't handle COVID.
Yeah.
Like not being able to have access to your phone for like a week would probably drive people nuts. So, but I wanted to dig into that whole concept even further. So I was like, you know what? I know this has to have massive effects on energy consumption because the more AI and the more technology that we become dependent on, the more energy we need, right? Like now, a lot of people are eating from a microwave, right? So like you're turning on a microwave at least 2 times a day.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're eating out for lunch, or maybe you have a cold lunch when you go to work. But if you happen to work at home, then you're turning on your microwave 3 times a day, maybe even 4 times for a snack. So that's energy there. Most of our stoves and ovens are now electric, so that's absorbing energy. We have TVs now in multiple rooms. Before, you had a TV in one room and everybody had to share and watch. Mm-hmm. But now...
And you weren't watching all day and evening and like through the summers and all that.
Correct.
You're watching in a program maybe after dinner.
Right. And so now, yes, you're right. So we're watching it all day and we're watching multiple devices. So while we're looking at the TV, or at least have the TV on, we're also on our phones or our tablets doing something else. Maybe playing a game or whatever it is that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So we have multiple...
Sometimes people are just scrolling, just on there.
Or just scrolling. And so you have multiple devices. All that stuff requires energy and power. Your air conditioning is on. Your lights are on, right? Sometimes all throughout the night. Some people leave their lights on in different rooms. Mm-hmm. And so just
A
power,
lot
power,
of people.
power. Yeah. And so, I wanted to figure out how much power are we absorbing in the course of a year. So I was able to pull up the stats for 2022. And it said that the United States power consumption per year is roughly 4 trillion kilowatt hours. And that was in 2022. A typical home uses about somewhere between 800 and 1,000 kilowatt hours for electricity, for like just general purpose electricity and air conditioning and things like that. Depending on where you are, that could range between somewhere like $80 to $120, right? Depending on what state you're in.
Yeah.
And also, if you're on the higher end of that range, it might be 130 sometimes.
Oh, the energy consumption.
Yeah. Like the actual dollar amount.
Dollars and okay, yeah.
So if we're saying that, just for giggles purposes, 1,000 kilowatt hours is about $130. So multiply that 1,000 to 4 trillion, excuse me. That's a lot of money. And this amount is 4 times greater than the energy used in 1950, which makes perfect sense. That goes right into what we were saying earlier as far as the amount of electronic devices that we use within our homes today.
1950, what was there? Possibly no, microwave wasn't there, but I don't know, probably a basic appliance for household use.
You had a TV back then. Well, if you were affluent, you had a TV.
Yeah, so not everyone had the devices as well. So yeah.
So but
Four
okay.
times makes sense.
Most people had a radio.
Yes.
Right. So you had a radio. You're not at washers and dryers yet. If you're affluent, you had a washer. But yeah, it wasn't really electronic devices that the general average Joe had. Was a radio and lights, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, lights.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had lights. Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. It's probably not something kids would mess with. Like, don't touch that. Versus now, the kids have their own devices.
Right. So yeah, it's 14 times greater. Yeah.
That's nuts, obviously.
It is. So you would think. So actually, you would think that most of this is residential. People at home just using up a bunch of power. I mean, shoot, we're using power right now to do the show. And that would be the case. About 38% of that usage that I mentioned earlier is from residential. So almost 40% of our energy consumption is from homes, apartments, things like that. 35 is from commercial, which I imagine took a massive hit during COVID. Mm-hmm. When you had people staying home. I don't know if that's changed now. You might have a lot of empty offices, but although there's a lot more businesses coming back to the office nowadays, so I think that might go back up. 25% is industrial, which that kind of makes sense. You kind of need a lot of energy for that. Actually, it's kind of really interesting because you usually use up a lot of energy for industrials, especially if you're like it's a factory or something like that. You guys want to guess what the state that has the most energy consumption? Want to take a stab at that?
I just glanced, so I can't.
You can't cheat at the notes.
I didn't realize that I was going to be asked the question.
All right. Well.
What was my initial thought?
What was your initial thought?
Oklahoma. No, I'm just kidding. Initially, I thought something like New York or...
Oh, yeah, because the ads, you have the panels always on.
Yeah.
The city that never sleeps.
City that never sleeps. Well, so initially, I misheard the question, and I was thinking, oh, Vegas. And I'm like, oh, that's city, and doesn't encompass the whole state, so Nevada couldn't be the whole thing.
Which is the issue of New York, because the rest
it's
of
also a city.
Yeah, and the rest of the state is more like foresty.
They're still pretty fast paced.
And like Albany, Syracuse. You talking about in cities like that?
It's not countryside.
Buffalo. It's not countryside.
Okay, it's not the same as New York City.
Right.
No.
It's like it's a normal like suburb,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, it's not the monstrosity that is New York City.
Yeah. Okay, so don't make us wait any longer. Who is it?
All right.
Or what state is it, I mean?
The great old state of Texas is on top of the leaderboard, which is very unfortunate. I don't even know what a terawatt is.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Everything is bigger than Texas. Texas is literally consuming twice as much power in California, Florida, New York, Illinois. Actually, no, it's almost 4 times for Illinois. That is nuts, considering that a lot of Texas is just farmland. So that means that most of that power is coming from the major cities, Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, I guess El Paso. That's crazy.
I think that falls in our bucket of things that we keep chalking on hey, that's not something you want to be the best at or be the most at.
Honestly, though, taking a second look at that makes sense because most of the state during the summer is extremely hot. So, like Houston, for example.
It's like so hot, y'all. Like so hot.
Houston's a great example because almost everything is indoors and everything's air conditioned. So you go from your car, which has air conditioning, to maybe spending a couple of seconds in the scorching heat and humidity, and then you go right inside to some other place. So we have really big malls in different parts of the city. Obviously, the Galleria Mall is the biggest one of the bunch and probably one of the biggest malls in the country. But that one's air conditioned, and that's a massive building.
Oh, yeah.
So I can't imagine what the electricity bill is for the Galleria Mall. That thing is always on.
I don't even want to see it.
It's probably...
That makes me want to look it up.
It's probably tremendous. So...
Yeah. Not for the owners, but yeah.
Yeah. So I can see why Texas is on top because California, for the most part, has good weather, which means you don't need to crank up your air conditioning every single day for like 6 months out of the year. Right? I mean, mostly California stays in like the 70s.
They've been blessed with some really great weather. At least they used to. I don't know if it's currently still like that.
Oh, yeah. Global warming might destroy that. But
yeah.
At least...
Oh, yeah. They have their own weather issues, of course.
Yeah.
The fires.
Yeah. But it used to be pretty chill throughout the rest of the year.
So the temperature, I think that still doesn't affect. The temperature is pretty normal. I think they had a colder winter this last time around, but I think maybe a bunch of states did. We did.
Florida, I can kind of see, although that's really interesting to see that Florida has just as much power consumption as California.
Florida's up there too?
Florida has almost 240 terawatts, which is 240 is California's terawatt usage. And that's really interesting considering the fact that Florida is smaller. And I would argue Florida has less major cities. Well, maybe that's not right. Let me see. You have Miami. Fort Lauderdale is, I guess, technically a different city, although like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, it's all kind of like smashed together.
It's close, yeah.
And then you have, is Daytona considered a city, or is it like a town? Orlando.
I don't want to offend anyone from Daytona.
Oh, yes. Yeah. All right, so for bona fides, Fort Lauderdale / Miami. You could say that's one, but that's two, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Orlando, Tampa, right? And then there's Jacksonville, Tallahassee, which is the capital. Okay, that's about 6. And then maybe if you want to slap in Daytona, I guess you could slap in Daytona for 7. California, you're looking at San Diego, LA, Sacramento, Fresno. What else you got?
San Diego. Did you ever say San Diego?
I did.
San Francisco?
San Fran. I guess San Jose is technically its own city.
Mm-hmm.
Oakland. Oh, it's tied.
Bakersfield.
Bakersfield's like Daytona.
It actually is, yes.
Okay, so you know what? So since we added Daytona in Florida, we'll add Bakersfield.
Woohoo! One for Bakersfield.
So that means 8 to 7. which is actually pretty close.
Y'all thank me for that one.
Yes.
It is pretty close.
That's actually surprising, even though you have a lot more, landmass in California. Major city wise, it's on par.
So, what about all the clean energy folks and environmentalists, wannabe / I care about the environment people?
What about them?
How come that's not reflecting here?
It is.
And all their California charges for plastic bags, by the way, in grocery stores.
And so I do have some info on that.
Didn't even phase it.
The plastic bags?
Yeah. Not if you went to the store to purchase a plastic bag. Go ahead, keep going. You're saying something else.
What is it? It must have went over my head.
Oh, no, I mean, like, if you go to the grocery store, you know how we're leaving Kroger, H-E-B, and you pick up the bag, you're going to be charged for the bags, for each of the bags.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I want to say it was 25 cents. I don't know what it would be now.
The state has to figure out a way to make money because they have so many programs that they were writing checks that they actually didn't have, that they couldn't cash. That, I can see how it's like, hey, guys, we're going to be charging for plastic bags because we need money.
Ick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Gotta balance the budgets.
Somehow. So yes, Texas has some behind it. Now, the state that has the highest cost for electricity, not surprising, is Hawaii. Because it's a little tiny landmass in the middle of absolutely nowhere. So I imagine it takes a lot of effort. I mean, food is more expensive. The cost of living is just more expensive in Hawaii. California happens to be number 2, which is weird because California is supposed to be the leader in renewables.
Renewables. I think that's what I was going towards when I said
right. So you know the windmills and all this other stuff, and Cali's like, yeah, it's going to be more expensive here. New York is number 3. Connecticut is number 4, and Massachusetts is number 5. That doesn't make sense either.
That little area up there, northeast.
Yeah, strange. So yeah, that's an interesting makeup. Now, speaking of renewables, another thing I wanted to figure out is, as we talked about technology today, we talked about AI and the advancements of technology. You would think this would also translate into other parts of technology, which would be the energy generation. So, there's been a massive push for renewables. I know Sleepy Joe has been adamant about increasing more resources for renewables and green energy. We made a green energy bill, right? That was not even tied to energy at all. It was something like, I don't know if you guys can recall. Yes, we did an episode.
It should be called the green energy bill. I see where you're going with that.
What was the original, like, what was the
topic?
Yeah.
Oh, it's to not to recover. What's it called? To fight inflation.
Yes. So Sleepy Joe's idea of fighting inflation is to give more money to renewables.
Check out our episodes on fighting inflation. Specifically the one with Biden. There's a long form video. Check that one out.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah,
so
his master plan to I can't even talk about it, to fight inflation is clean energy.
Yeah.
With a straight face.
Because somehow that's connected.
It is.
So, I was expecting there to be some ground that was covered. And unfortunately, we're only looking at 19% of our total energy generation coming from renewables. 60% is coming from our dreaded fossil fuels. Is that really surprising to you?
That's what I was trying to figure out, what percentage I would have thought. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I didn't know what to think. What about you?
I'm not really surprised with that. I know we've been trying really hard to push to get renewables up to speed, but I think the unfortunate part that we have here is the fact that our demand is only increasing every year. I think we would have been able to give renewables a chance if our consumption went down. but every year it can continually goes up and up and up and up and up. And as we demand more and we demand more, we keep our dependence on fossil fuels. One of the great examples was when crypto started to blow up, right? Everybody's trying to get a cryptocurrency. Ooh, let me get in on Bitcoin. Let me get in on Bitcoin, right? And then people start to do mining for coins, right? People don't realize how much energy mining for coins absorbs, right? You have people who will take a whole warehouse somewhere, and they will put all these servers in this warehouse and get all these servers working on the, whatever equations they're working on to mine these coins. The servers obviously take energy because they're all computers. And then on top of that, they're generating heat, and you have to cool them down so that they don't thermal throttle. And so you have to air condition this place. And so you have this continual energy consumption going on to do what at the end of the day? To get a couple of Bitcoins?
Yeah, what's the bottom line here?
So,
Or there.
So I don't know. I know that everybody's trying to push for at the end of the day to get rid of fossil fuels, but I don't know if that's going to be possible because we continually demand more.
More.
We need more. We always need more. More of this, more of that, more of this. We need more.
You want more, boy.
And so, I don't think I don't think we can let go, because nothing else can generate enough energy to replace fossil fuels. It's 60% still, right? You have, I guess you could try to boost natural gas.
We can curb behavior. Do we really need to use all that?
We don't.
Besides people that actually definitively you would not be able to get to your workplace without, using that type of energy.
I don't know. But, one of the useful things that I guess we could do, in addition to curbing behavior, is liking and subscribing to the show.
I know he did not just do that to y'all. I'm just kidding. Good job, Reason. Good job, Reason.
Y'all like that? All right.
I love it.
Let us know in the comment section what you guys think. The question, we'll generate a question, but what do you guys think about the future? And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.
Peace.